and the Russo and the Mojave make a white snake, then more than likely the Russo and the lesser is going to make some form of a white snake. And then the one that throws a monkey wrench in there is the Phantom, because it has the most pattern. But when you look at it, it kind of makes sense, because to me at least, the Phantom looks the most normal of those. If you rated them on a scale, like a sliding scale, the Phantom looks the closest to a normal. The lesser looks the farthest away from a normal. And then the Mojave and the Russo and the Mochas, those all kind of fit right in that rainbow. And when you look at, the Mojave, which is very close to the Phantom in coloration and looks, it has, less pigment on it than the Phantom does, than the Super Phantom, but it's still kind of in that lavenderish shade. Then the Phantom has that same coloration but with full pattern on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes, it kind of makes sense that it's some form of protein level that's changing. But it's enough that there's a distinct line of where that is, which is why when you take a cross of these, you get 50% of one or the other. You don't get that. That was one of the things we were wondering, and I was proven wrong on that. I thought that you would be able to produce like bumblebees, 1 in 4, you'd be able to produce a leucistic. Well, it doesn't work that way if you have to get 2 genes, from each parent. Obviously, the normal one doesn't have that gene, so you can't get that. Where, with the bumblebee, you need 1 gene from each parent, and the fact that the spider and the pastel are not on the same allele, that animal can throw that gene at the same time, or both those genes. But some of this will probably get real confusing on a radio show without a diagram to kind of point this stuff out.
Well, we're going to get back to some more the basic talk, but you've got my mind really racing right now, and this has kind of been bouncing around in there for a while. And my question would be, and this is along the same lines. Let's say you have a Mojo, Phantom cross. It produces that super form where it looks, like a super Phantom, but it's a little bit lighter. Mm-hmm. So what if you have a male from there? So you have a Mojo Phantom male, and you bred that to a super lesser female. Because I know that you're not going to be able to fit 3 of these types of genes in one animal. What's going to happen in that scenario? I mean, it's either going to be the Mojo or the Phantom. Something's going to be canceled out completely and not even going to be able to be produced, right?
Yeah, you're going to throw one or the other from that side because that's a double. The super lesser can only throw lesser.
Yeah.
So all of the babies are going to have lesser in them. And then on the other side, you're going to get one or the other crossed with the lesser.
3 ain't happening, right? It just ain't
possible. Because they're on the same allele, and it can only throw, one side of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Now, if they were separate spots, so far, and that's one of the things, we have not done a dominant series in these genes. We sure as heck haven't done one, through DNA, because we haven't figured anything out DNA-wise. We're just visually looking at what happens. But, in a dominant series, what they do is they take all of these dominant genes, and then they figure out which ones are dominant over each other. Because dominant is, the baseline for dominant is the wild type. It's either dominant or recessive to the wild type. But then we've got, 25 dominant genes. Which one of those are dominant over each other? And I think we're starting to see that. I think, like I said before, one of the most dominant genes is the cinnamon gene. I haven't seen anything more dominant than that. It kind of takes over no matter what it's put in with.
Champagne's pretty daggone dominant, It's BT.
I was thinking the same thing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of them, just overpowering. Let's go to the phones real quick. Call it with the 678 area code. 678, you're on Reptile Radio. Greg Graziani, you got a question or a comment?
A couple quick questions. Take your time, man. We got plenty of time. Well, I'd just like to say that thanks for letting you guys on the show. And Greg, you're not losing me whatsoever. I completely follow what you're talking about.
Good.
So I hope the question is not throwing myself off. First quick question. Super Strike. they come from whirlwind specters and yellow belly. Do you think as time goes on, we're going to start to see more combos that look more like that, where it seems like they're two completely separate teams that just happen to fall into the same lily?
Greg, are you able to make out what he's saying there, buddy?
Yeah, vaguely. He's talking about the super stripes and the specters and the yellow bellies producing that, super stripe animal, and allelically, do we think we'll see more of that? Is that what he was asking?
Right.
Let's see if we can get him. Phone's cutting out real bad. Was that basically your question there?
Can you hear me? Hold on a sec.
Yeah, you're cutting out real bad.
What about now?
Sounds good.
All right, man. Better.
Okay. Well, sorry about that. Well, basically, if you understand how the super stripe works, it's basically, like you guys already said, the yellow belly to a spectre or a whirlwind, whichever one you like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you breed that same animal back to the series of normals, they've figured out since they first produced it that it's actually not reproducible by itself. Like you can, like a bumblebee to a normal can actually produce bumblebees. Whirlwind can't. Super stripes can't do that. Do you think we're going to start to see more morphs like that?
I think it's possible. I think the ball pythons have proven pretty much anything's possible.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. That's something I'm personally not working with. I honestly probably couldn't pick out a whirlwind or a specter. That's been one of my questions for a while, because a lot of people have been so secretive with the morphs. They don't want somebody to pick these out of the wild and start setting them up with yellow bellies. So I'm really not familiar with what the traits are, to look at those and pick them out. But if that's the case, I haven't been working with any of those myself, and have not bred them. If they're breeding them back and not able to reproduce those, then more than likely it's going to be in that same complex, similar to the lesser complex with all those different things that produce something strange in some form. And when you look at the super stripe, it resembles an ivory with that solid striping down the back. Obviously, the ivory is whiter throughout the whole body and everything, but you can see the resemblance in those animals. So, the fact that they are, allelically in the same spot doesn't surprise me. I don't know what other, again, there's some other morphs out there that I'm not familiar with simply because I haven't bred them myself. But the crystal ball is another one. What's going on with that complex, I don't know, because it's not something I've been working with. And unfortunately, for a number of years, I tried to keep up on who did what and what the genetics were on everything. And now it's just impossible for me to keep up with. It's hard for me to keep up with what I'm doing at my own facility, let alone what everybody else is doing with all these different morphs. I just kind of got to pick and choose what we're going to work with and try and figure that out the best we can. But, theory-wise, that makes sense that, we're going to see a lot more of that stuff and a lot of things that kind of open up another morph that, you may not visually be able to see. I mean, to my knowledge, we still don't see any difference in the lesser sibs that are producing the platies. You just got to know where they came from, to carry that gene. So, again, there's something that's, even more bizarre. Obviously, genetically, those animals are carrying something, but we can't see it, except in that homozygous form where they pop out in the platies.
Yeah. Does that answer your question there, buddy?
Yeah, it does. Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
And this one's kind of open to anybody, because it's kind of just a theory of how I think of hypos, really. Greg, do you work with a lot of hypos?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we've got our G1 hypo, which is a proven line now that is not compatible with any other. We've worked with, orange, green, yellow, butterscotch, all those different hypos.
That's right. I forgot. You're the one with the blue hypo.
Yes, we've got the blue ghost that I have not been able to reproduce. I was just looking at her today.
Well, I have kind of an idea that I've talked to other breeders about. It really refers to what the word hypo means. Hypo is just short for hypomelanistic, which means missing melon, basically.